In the 4th era, 168, Titus Mede II became the Emperor of the Tamrielic Empire, weakened by the results of the Oblivion Crisis and many other events. 3 years later, on the 30th of Frostfall, an ambassador from the Aldmeri Dominion entered the Imperial City with a covered cart and a list of demands, calling for money, no more blades, no more Talos, and giving a large section of Hammerfell to the Dominion. Mede thought that was stupid, so he rejected the deal. The ambassador flipped over the cart, and hundreds of heads rolled out from underneath the cover, revealing the severed heads of every single Blades agent in Valenwood and in the Somerset Isles. This was the start of the Great War. During the Great War, Ulfric Stormcloak was captured by the Aldmeri Dominion and was interrogated. Elenwen labeled him an asset to their plans and allowed him to escape. While the Empire was fighting the Dominion, Imperial forces were squeezed out of the provinces of Skyrim. The Forsworn, natives of the Reach province, took this opportunity to take over Markarth. This was known as the Forsworn Uprising. Over the next 5 years, numerous legions of the Empire would fall, severely weakening their forces much more than it already has been. On the 11th of Sun's Dusk, 4th Era, 176, Emperor Mede II signed the White Gold Concordant in an effort to end the Great War. The demands were the exact same as the previous ultimatum, but without the large sum of money. The demands that were agreed on was no more Talos, no more blades, rest in peace Hammerfell, and let the Thalmor move throughout Skyrim. This made a lot of people very angry and was widely considered to be a bad move. 2 years after the Markarth incident, ex-Jarl Hrolfdir and his son Igmund asked Ulfric Stormcloak to help them retake the Reach.
Hey Pope, can you help us get rid of the Seljuks? Maybe take back the Holy Land on the way? Come on, I know you want to take back the Holy Land. Yes, I do actually want to do that. Let's do a crusade.
Promising him that they would allow free Talos worship despite the Concordant's outlaw. Ulfric accepted this proposal. His Thu'um and his militia successfully took over the Reach and was more or less peaceful about it. Hrolfdir, Jarl again, kept his promise and Talos worship was legal in Markarth. The Imperial Legion soon returned to restore their rule, but was turned away by Ulfric, demanding that they would be kept out until the Empire allows the Talos worship to continue. The Empire accepted this proposal, angering the Aldmeri Dominion. Their pressure on the Empire caused them to reconsider their agreement, resulting in Hrolfdir's betrayal on Ulfric and his subsequent exile from the city. This was the beginning of the Stormcloak Rebellion. The tragedy of the rise of the Stormcloak Rebellion is honestly pretty deserved. I've always hated the Thalmor, and now I hate them more. But is my hate for the Dominion worth the destruction of Skyrim? In other words, are the Stormcloaks short-sighted? Or are they ahead of their time? It is I, Shade, here to compare and contrast the two, and with a hint of opinion, decide for myself which faction deserves to win based on moral, political, and realistic standpoints. Let's begin. As stated before, the Stormcloak Revolutionaries came to be after Ulfric Stormcloak was exiled from Markarth, his capture, and his subsequent escape. The Stormcloaks aimed to secede from the Empire and become their own independent feudal kingdom. Their end goal is to restore Talos worship, execution of all Thalmor within the province, Ulfric Stormcloak becomes High King, and to prepare Skyrim for a future war alone with the Aldmeri Dominion. Their reasons extend beyond the simple Talos worship ban. The Stormcloaks believe that the Mede dynasty is held by the strings of the Thalmor and has lost their right to lead Skyrim as a result. The Empire's rule has censored many of the ancient Nord customs and values, which to the Stormcloaks likewise tried to enforce within their ranks, and eventually to all of Skyrim. Once the Empire has been defeated in Skyrim, the Stormcloaks plan on reforming an autonomous kingdom and finishing the war with the Dominion themselves, not held down by the Empire's restrictive policies. Within their own ranks stems mostly similar tastes. Vikings and Beowulf wannabes sharing goals of wanting independence and freedom of religion.
God bless America! USA!
However, not all is good. Jarl Layla Lawgiver of Riften doesn't trust or support Ulfric entirely, but only sides with him because they both share a common goal to be independent of the Empire. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. The Nords also appear to be racist across many of the races present in Tamriel, most obvious in the headquarters of the Revolution, in Windhelm. The first thing you see when you enter Windhelm are two Nords insulting a local Dunmer and accuse her of being an Imperial spy.
You come here where you're not wanted. You eat our food, you pollute our city with your stink, and you refuse to help the Stormcloaks.
But we haven't taken a side because it's not our fight.
Hey, maybe the reason these Greyskins don't help in the war is because they're Imperial spies.
Imperial spies? You can't be serious.
Maybe we'll pay you a visit tonight, little spy. We got ways of finding out what you really are.
Argonians are flat out not allowed in the city. They reside on the docks and in collective residence referred to as Argonian assemblage. But despite the domestic issues, they still managed to hold together 4 provinces: Eastmarch, the Pale, the Rift, and Winterhold, and they hold well enough to rival the Empire in a stalemate throughout most of the main quest. Not bad for the local militia. The Imperials are more notable in Tamriel, almost ruled over the entire continent before the Fourth Era. A series of unfortunate circumstances 150 years after the Oblivion Crisis, somewhat weakened it by the time Titus Mede II takes control, but still pretty powerful. The Imperial Legion itself is the military branch of the Tamrielic Empire. In Skyrim, their goal within the main quest is to quell the rebellion and restore peace in Skyrim, in turn keeping it as part of the Empire. The Imperial Legion believes that as a province of the Empire, Skyrim must abide by its laws and customs. A fact that the Stormcloaks tend to not notice is that the Legion doesn't like the Thalmor just as much as the Stormcloaks. They only uphold the Concordant because they don't want to start another war. Some legionaries do in fact keep faith in Talos, such as Havdar and Legate Rikke, but keep it secret. The Emperor's cousin, Vittoria Vici, openly says that the Empire itself despises the Dominion. That being said, exalts of the Legion agree with Ulfric in that the Thalmor have a pretty big iron fist over the Empire. Loyal Jarls and Lords only ally themselves with the Thalmor if their goals interest them.
I feel that it's time to put aside the grievances of the past and let peace and prosperity flourish between the Empire and the Aldmeri Dominion. I try to do my little part. Besides, just between you and me, it's making me pots of money.
Most of these people agree that the war should just stop already, except Maven Blackbriar, who respects the Thalmor for their strong hold on power.
We have a relationship of mutual respect. I care little about the politics and rivalries between the Thalmor and the Empire. But I do respect power, and the Thalmor have that. They leave me alone, and I leave them alone.
Skyrim's upper class are more supportive of the Empire due to their belief that Ulfric's speeches is just political propaganda, with his ulterior motive simply being High King. Others believe that the trade between Cyrodiil and Skyrim should be kept due to convenience, and almost everyone is loyal to the Empire simply because they feel they have a better chance of defending against the Dominion should they attack. Not many domestic affairs within the Empire can scale up to the giraffe in the room that is the Stormcloak Rebellion. While the Stormcloaks may be racist and drunk all the time, the Imperials have half the province they're in control of locked in a civil war. Oh, Biggest Dickus doesn't seem to be doing very well these days, when the Imperial Legion is in perpetual stalemate with a bunch of wasted drunks. But I've already told you about that, so let's go on.
Wait till Biggest Dickus hears of this.
One factor that is sometimes overlooked is how the Thalmor think of the Civil War. This much is given. In Ulfric Stormcloak's dossier by the Thalmor, they say that any side winning would hurt the Dominion. An Imperial victory harms the Thalmor's overall position in Skyrim, and that a Stormcloak victory should also be avoided. Stretching out the war for as long as possible benefits the Thalmor the most. In fact, had Alduin not stepped in and did it for them, Elenwen would have intervened in Ulfric's execution and helped him escape in order to prolong the war. So, they love this stuff. Keep it up, guys, they say. Longer is better. Other than people shutting up about which side is better, once the Civil War questline has been fulfilled, the residents of Skyrim that have been affected have different dialogue depending on who wins. If the Stormcloaks win Whiterun, a number of things happen. Adrian, the blacksmith next to the entrance of Whiterun, almost gets run out of business because the Stormcloaks refused to buy from her. Had she not married Ulfirth, she'd have gone out of business. The owner of the Bannered Mare, Hulda, says that the Stormcloaks almost never pay for their drinks and constantly get in drunken brawls. Carlotta also complains of the Imperials at least having baths, implying the Nords aren't too big on hygiene. Ulfred says that his family are constantly harassed, reporting it only makes it worse. On the other hand, in Windhelm, an Imperial victory makes the Dunmer express joy that the Stormcloaks lost. Well, sorry guys, I tried to make it seem fair. From what I could gather, I really couldn't find anything except Stormcloak warriors or veterans that hated the Stormcloaks' loss. I spent a good hour reading dialogue from the wiki and talking to people in-game, and all the civilians I could find were in agreement that the Empire's influence was better than the Stormcloaks, and vice versa. So from a domestic standpoint, every way to Sunday leads to your preferred choice being the Imperials. Like I said, Stormcloak warriors and veterans are the only people that didn't like the Stormcloaks losing. There are a few people that say that they did not hate the Stormcloaks and they just wanted them to stop being dicks. But most of Skyrim is in agreement that the Imperials are much better. In the political realm, there's not much that changes in whoever wins, except when other factors are involved, such as, well, domestic relations and the Empire's goal. Domestic relations is down pat. All the Dunmer mistreated in Windhelm are met with much more attention and respect, for example. The Empire's end goal essentially matches with the Stormcloaks, minus restoring Nord customs and Ulfric being High King, so that results in another plus in politics. The moral standpoint is a bit tricky because of how subjective it is. Frankly, this whole topic is subjective, but shut up. I'm sure we all felt sympathy for the Stormcloaks because they were being restricted in their traditions and religion, and wanted freedom from a higher power. Sound familiar, United States? But my previous accusation towards the Stormcloaks, to me, was correct. They're short-sighted. The Empire hates the Concordant too, some of them worship Talos still, and they also hate the Thalmor, but they're willing to give up their hatred for it in order to rebuild, hopefully strong enough to fight back for good. The Stormcloaks, in my opinion, are instead only focused on the fact that the Empire outlawed Talos worship and allowed the Thalmor to walk around Skyrim, not listening to the motives behind these actions. And if a moral discussion over whether or not to kill Harold in Fallout 3 has taught me anything, is that the betterment of everyone else is worth the suffering of a few. I'll give that last point to the Imperials. And so, my closing thoughts. My previous section detailed what I believe. The Great War ravaged the Empire, and the only way out was to give some of themselves up. The Stormcloaks didn't like these changes, and rebelled. I believe that the Stormcloaks aren't seeing why they give some of themselves up, resulting in their downfall. The war between the Vikings and the Romans, I gotta give it to Pontius Pilate. I'm sure Rorik won't go down well in a duel between the two, both realistically and metaphorically. However, these are just my thoughts. What do you think? Did I miss something? Do you want to back me up? Let me know so when I do future videos like this, I know what I need to improve on to make it more engaging, entertaining, or informative. Anyway, I thank you for watching this video of mine, and I'd be happy to see you watch my previous videos and my future projects coming up. Prosegor.